Haribol. Okay, so you get all ready for today. Today is a special day on the Vaishnav calendar. It's the appearance day of Lord Vamanadev. It's also the appearance day of Srila Jiva Goswami. So we're going to start the class off by reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 8th canto, 18th chapter, text 1. So you can just get that ready while we chant Jai Radha Madhava. Jai Radha Madhava Kunda Vihare Radha Madhava Kunda Vihare Jai Radha Madhava Kunda Vihare Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paramedikacharya also such as Shimad, His Divine Grace, Navaya Charanala Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Say Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadwaita Gadadha Shri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shaya Mukunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavanam Ki Jai. Mathura Ki Jai. Jagannath Swami Ki Jai. Monamai Ki Jai. Shrimati Lasi Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda. All glorious the assembled devotees, all glorious the assembled devotees, all glorious the assembled devotees, all glorious to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurani Pajarni Nirvishesha Shunyavadi. So we're going to start today's class by reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 8th canto, 18th chapter, text 1. So Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Shukuvacha Itam Virincha Stuta Karma Virya Padur Vavu Vamrita Adhyam Chaturabhuja Shankar Gadabja Chakra Vishanga Vasa Nalinaya Tekshana Shishupavacha Itam Virinchastuta Karma Virya Pradurbabu Vamrita Buradichyam Chaturabhuja Shankar Gadabja Chakra Vishangavasa Nalinaya Tikshana Shishuguvacha Itam Virinchastuta Karma Virya Pradurva Bhuvamrita Buradichyam Chaturabhuja Shankar Gadabja Chakra Shangavasanalaya Tekshana Shishukuvacha Itam Virinchastuta Karma Virya Pradurbabu Vamrita Buradichyam Chaturabhuja Shankar Gadabja Chakra Vishangavasanalaya Tekshana. Okay.
Itam virincha sutta karma virya Chaturbuja Sankha Gadabja Chakraha Vishanga Vasana Nilaya Tikshana Shri Shukavacha Itam Virincha Stuta Karma Virya Pradhurbhavu Bhuvamrita Bhuraditya Chaturbhuja Shankha Gadabja Chakraha Vishanga Vasana Linaya Tikshanaha Shri Shukavacha Itam Virincha Stuta Karma Virya Pradhurbhavu Bhuraditya Chaturbhuja Shankha Gadabja Chakraha Vishanga Vasana Linaya Tikshanaha.
Ladies.
Shri Shukavacha Itam Virincha Stuta Karma Virya Pradhurbhavu Bhuraditya Chaturbhuja Shankha Gadabja Chakraha Vishanga Vasana Linaya Tikshanaha. Shri Shukavacha Karma Virya Pradhurbhavu Bhuraditya Chaturbhuja Shankha Gadabja Chakraha Vishanga Vasana Linaya Tikshanaha.
All right. Shri Shukavacha. Shri Shukadev Goswami said, Itam, in this way, Virinchastuta Karma Virya, the personality of Godhead, whose activities and prowess are always praised by Lord Brahma. Pradhurbhavuva became manifested. Amritabhu, whose appearance is always deathless. Adityam, from the womb of Aditi. Chaturbhuja, having 4 arms. Shankadakada Abjachakra, decorated with conch shell, club, lotus, and disc. Vishangavasa, dressed in yellow garments. Nalina Adyatat Ikshanaha, having blooming eyes like the petals of a lotus. So translation. Shukadev Goswami said, after Lord Brahma had thus spoken, glorifying the Supreme Lord's activities and prowess, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is never subject to death like an ordinary living being, appeared from the womb of Aditi. His 4 hands were decorated with a conch shell, club, lotus, and disc. He was dressed in yellow garments, and his eyes appeared like the petals of a blooming lotus. So purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The word Amrita, is significant in this verse. The Lord sometimes appears like an ordinary child taking birth, but this does not mean that he is subject to birth, death, or old age. One must be very intelligent to understand appearance and activities of the Supreme Lord in his incarnations. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, the 4th chapter, text 9. Janma karma chamidivyam evam yoveti tattva. One should try to understand that the Lord's appearance and disappearance and his activities are all divyam or transcendental. The Lord has nothing to do with the material activities. One who understands the appearance, disappearance, and activities of the Lord is immediately liberated. After giving up his body, he never again has to accept a material body, but is transferred to the spiritual world, Chaktwa Deyam, Punarjanma 90 Mamedi Sojana, Bhagavad Gita 4:9. Okay, so again the verse. Shishukavajitam Virinchastat Karma Viryavadur Amritapur Tatuja Shanka Kadamjajapta Vishangavasa Nalina Yatekshanaha. So Om Ganatimirandasha Gananjana Shlakaya Jakshur Unmiritam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Namaha. So of course this is the story of Lord Vamana's appearance as a dwarf Brahmana. So I am going to relay some aspects of the story, just a summary, so we can understand. So, once upon a time there was Prahlad Maharaj, whose father Hiranyakashipu was killed by Lord Narasimha. Prahlad had a son named Virochan, and Virochan had a son named Bali Maharaj. So, Prahlad was blessed by Lord Narasimha that none of his descendants would ever be killed by Vishnu. Pretty good blessing. So, then what happened is that Bali Maharaj, is part of the story I sort of related yesterday. Bali Maharaj lost the battle to the demigods, and he was killed. Remember I talked about that? Then he was brought back to life by his Guru Maharaj, Shukracharya. And Shukracharya did this yajna, and he created all these different horses, chariot, bow, armor, and everything. And even Prahlad Maharaj gave Bali Maharaj a victory garland. Really nice. And so Bali attacked the demigods. The demigods were actually very weak because they hadn't properly respected their spiritual master, and also they disrespected Indra, according to the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. What happened is, not only did, not that they disrespected Indra, but Indra disrespected Durvasamuni. Because when Indra got a garland from Durvasamuni, he gave it to his elephant, the elephant trampled it on the ground, and Durvasamuni cursed him. You should lose everything. So the demigods lost everything, and the demons became very, very powerful, and Brahaspati, the guru of the demigods, said, you better leave, there's nothing you can do about it. So Bali took over the heavenly planets, and he was performing 1,000 sacrifices, actually 100 horse sacrifices, to become more powerful. So in the meantime, Indra's mother, Aditi, who was the mother of all the demigods, became very upset because her son had been kicked out of his house, out of his kingdom. And she went to Kashyapa, her husband, and said, my dear husband, we need to solve this problem. So we actually see, even Diti, who was the mother of all the Daityas, the demons, goes to Kashyapa, because they were co-wives. It's interesting. Nice family, isn't it? One part of the family are demons, the other part are devotees. You know, Diti, and actually Kashyapa had other wives like Danu and others who were the mothers of the demons, other types of demons, the Danavas, Daityas, and then we have the Devas, or the demigods. So, Kashyapa said to his wife Aditi, you have to perform this ceremony called the Payovrata, which means living only on drinking milk and doing all these different ceremonies in order to get the fruits of your desire. So she did this, And as we read here in the Bhagavatam, Lord Vishnu appeared with 4 arms before her. Before he actually appeared as Vamanadev, he appeared with 4 arms. He said, just worship your husband. Because within your husband is me, Kashyapa. You know, because actually so. So anyway, so Krishna's plenary portion was transferred by Kashyapa into Aditi's womb, and Aditi was pregnant with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Lord Brahma and all the demigods prayed to Lord Brahma in the to Lord, not Lord Brahma, but Lord Vishnu in the womb of Aditi. So then Aditi was born, and not Aditi, sorry. So Vamanadev was born, and immediately he changed into a dwarf form, and he was given a sacred thread for Brahaspati, and all the demigods offered him different things like an umbrella and other items that a Brahmana would have. So he exhibited his Brahman effulgence because the Supreme Lord's, Bunkaro. Hare Krishna. No music, please. So, when we do narrations online, we have music, but not during class. Okay. Still here. Okay, so anyway, he exhibited his Brahman effulgence, and he went to Bali Maharaj's sacrifice. Remember I said that Bali Maharaj was doing a sacrifice of 100 horse sacrifices. Okay. So Bali was actually a very great Vaishnava too, because he was the grandson of Prahlad Maharaj. And he accepted all the Vedic injunctions, such as receiving brahmanas. It's actually very important when one's doing deity worship, one's doing a sacrifice. If some Vaishnava comes, you're supposed to stop it and to receive them nicely. If there's no one else to receive them, obviously. If there's someone else, you let someone else do it. So what happened is that Bali stopped the sacrifice for a few minutes, and he washed Lord Vamana's feet. And he said to Lord Vamana, what do you want? I'll give you anything. This is also the proper way to receive a Vaishnava. Nobody's done that for me. They may give me something, $5 or something. But no one says, anything you want, Maharaj, I'll give you. And that reminds me of the time that Viswamitra Muni went to see Dasarath. Remember that? And Dasarath, he said, whatever you want, I'll give you. And he said, I want your son. Oh my God. Same thing happened to Lord Nityananda's father, Hriday Pandit. And he was very attached to his son. His son was only 11 years old. Lord Nityananda was only 11 years old. So the sannyasi said, I want your son. So when we go to people's houses, we can say, I want your son. And they'll say, no, Maharaj. Just eat prasadam and behave yourself. But that's not the Vedic system. The Vedic system, you're supposed to give the sannyasi whatever he asks for. Of course, that means the sannyasi is not going to ask for everything usually. But Lord Vamanadev was not a sannyasi, so he could ask for everything. So Bali Maharaj asked, what do you want? I'll give you anything you want. I'll give you land, I'll give you a wife, I'll give you anything, a whole kingdom. And first thing that Vamanadev did is he glorified Bali Maharaj's ancestors. He even glorified Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha for being very heroic. And glorified, of course, Prahlad Maharaj. And then he said, I only want 3 paces of land. Bali Maharaj said, that's pretty unintelligent. You can have anything in the universe because I'm in charge of everything. What do you want? And then Lord Vamanadev said something very insightful and important for us. What was that? If one is not satisfied by 3 paces of land, one will not be satisfied with anything. You understand? If you're not satisfied with whatever prasadam you're getting, you'll never be satisfied. If you're not satisfied with whatever car you have, whatever husband or wife you have, isn't it? People want more and more and more. So we should be satisfied. We should cultivate this tushyanti, tushti, satisfaction, tushyanti cha ramanti cha. And of course, we cultivate that by majjata madhyata pranat puryantas cha parasparam katyantas jamam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha, right? By always chanting about Krishna's glories and the association of devotees. So eventually, Bali said, okay, if that's all you want, then I will signify that I'm giving 3 paces of land to you. Guru Maharaj, Shukracharya, a seminal guru or a Kula guru, or Muslim witch doctors here in Fiji. So anyway, so he says, don't do it. He's Vishnu, and he'll take away everything that you have. And of course, previously, Shukracharya was telling Bali Maharaj to worship Vishnu, to get everything, because Bali was a devotee. And he said, Guru Maharaj, why are you changing your opinion right now? Because Guru Maharaj was very much into Satyanarayan Katha. You understand? He wasn't into pure devotional service. He was into getting things from Krishna. Business. He said, no, Krishna's come to take everything. No. We only do business with Krishna. We don't let him have things for free. So Shukracharya said, you don't have to give things away, even though you promised. Because charity is not good if it endangers one's life, which is true. But in this particular case, Bali Maharaj's life was not in danger. And then he says something very interesting. Lying is okay, and don't take this as Krishna's instruction, as Shukracharya's instruction. When flattering women, that's Shukracharya, it's not me, it's not Prabhupada, it's not Krishna. I had to be very clear about that. When joking, that's all right, I can do that. In marriage, earning money, protecting life, some of the things I agree with, protecting life, cows, and Brahmins, yes, then you can lie. But not when flattering ladies. And I also agree with joking. So, but certain things, this is Bali, so Shukracharya is the acharya of the demons. So you actually see this coming with some so-called brahmanas even here in Fiji. So Bali disagreed. He said the earth will not bear the weight of a sinful liar. And his guru at that point became so frustrated. My disciple will not follow my instructions. I curse him. Pretty good guru, isn't it? Of course, a disciple doesn't follow. I'd be cursing all day long if I follow that particular path. So Bali ignored him. So Bali got ready to offer water from this sacred pot into Lord Vamanadev's hand to signify that he was going to give him the 3 steps of land. So he tried to pour water from the water pot, but the spout, that means the tiny section there, no water would come out. He was wondering, what's there? And so Lord Vamana knew. He took some kusha grass and he opened up the spout of the pot. And inside that spout of the pot was Shukracharya. And Shukracharya got blinded in one eye. So he really hated Lord Vishnu after that point. So then after Lord Vamana was given this benediction, he increased his size to the size, basically the size of the universe. With his first step, he took over the whole earth. Second step, took over the whole universe. And he actually kicked a hole in the universe. And so the Ganges came in at that point. Not to the earth planet. Later on, the Ganges came to the earth planet. But at this particular juncture, just went to the Mandakini Ganges, the heavenly Ganges. So, then the followers of Bali Maharaj got really upset, and they tried to kill Lord Vamana. And some of them were killed, and Bali said, don't do this, don't do this. We have to give everything to Lord Vamana. And then, at that point, the question arised that Lord Vamana said, what about the third step of land you promised? And he didn't have anything else to give. So then it's described that Garuda tied up Bali with the ropes of Varuna, and Lord Vamana said, you cheated. You promised 3 steps of land. And Bali said, of course, you can place your third step on my head. Prahlad Maharaj came at that point, and he got pushed down to the lower regions of the universe. And Lord Brahma said, that's enough punishment for him. So then Bali was blessed by Lord Vishnu, that's Vamana, that he would become Indra in the past. But before that, he would go to the planet of Sutala, in the lower regions of the universe, and the Lord would be his doorkeeper. And then the demigods retook heaven with Vamana, who remained there and who was worshipped by Indra. So that's the story of Lord Vamana Dev in a nutshell. Now, we will talk about Srila Jiva Goswami. Give me 1 second here. Okay. Where's that? Hold on, my notes about Jiva Goswami. Here we go. Okay. Here is the information about Jiva Goswami. So Jiva Goswami, of course, is one of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. And he was the youngest of the Goswamis of Vrindavan. He was the nephew of Rupa and Sanatan Goswamis. He was the son of Anupama, or Sri Vallabha, that's the same person, their brother. And he actually wrote so many Vaishnava literatures, which we're going to talk about in a second. And also in terms of his ontological position, that means who he was in Krishna Lila, he was Vilasa Mandri in Krishna Lila. And when he was born, he had a golden complexion, and he had darshan with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he was a little baby, in this place called Ramakeli, where Sanatana and Rupa Goswami and Anupama, his father, met Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for the first time. So he was left with his mother when his father went with his uncles, that's Sanatana and Rupa Goswami, and he was always worshiping Radha Krishna deities. He was dreaming of dancing with Gaurnitai even from his very birth, and he was feeling great separation from his father and uncles who had left to join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So when he got a little older, he went to Navadvip to see Lord Nityananda. And he met Lord Nityananda at Srivas Thakur's house. Of course, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wasn't there at that particular time. And the next day he was fed by Sachi Mata, who was Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mother, and he was taken on a whole tour of the Navadvip Mandal Parikrama by Lord Nityananda. So Lord Nityananda gave him his mission. He said, you go to Kasi. Now, Kasi is generally a place of worship of Lord Shiva. So why did he send him to Kasi? Because he wanted him to study Sanskrit with this great personality named Madhusudana Vachaspati. And this Madhusudana Vachaspati was a disciple of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, because he wanted Srila Jiva Goswami to become very educated so he could write these most elaborate treatises on the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, especially something called the Shadarshanas. That means the 6 works that elaborate on our whole philosophy in a very intense way. So then, after learning Sanskrit nicely, he went to Vrindavan to stay with Srila Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. And he was given Radha Damodar to worship by Srila Rupa Goswami. So Jiva Goswami's deity is Radha Damodar deity, the Radha Damodar deity. And this deity was actually made by Srila Rupa Goswami. It was fashioned, I don't know if he actually carved it, but he actually designed this deity of Radha Damodar. Very nice. And so, then he began to serve Rupa Goswami, and he became the proofreader, editor for Rupa Goswami and his works. And he rendered very, very, very menial service to Srila Rupa Goswami. In other words, cleaned up after him, and cooked for him, and do everything. He accepted Srila Rupa Goswami as his spiritual master. So one time, he got very upset when his Guru Maharaj was offended. This is an interesting story. There was this one Pandit who was going around and conquering people by arguing with them, philosophically, not just like arguing like you argue here, I hate you. That's not what we talk about. When we talk about philosophical arguments, his name was Rupa Narayan. And so he came to Vrindavan and he challenged Rupa Goswami to a debate. And Rupa Goswami was thinking, I don't want to waste time with this guy, get him away. So he said, all right, I'll admit that I was defeated. And so this guy said, well, can you sign this, what's called a Jaya Patra? It means a victory paper. So Rupa Goswami said, okay, sign it. Rupa Goswami said, get the hell out of here. I know he didn't say that. But he said, just get out of here. So then, this Rupa Narayana, he was going around Vrindavan showing the paper. Look, I defeated Rupa Goswami. I defeated Rupa Goswami. And when Srila Jiva Goswami saw this, he got so angry that he thought, no, you should debate with me. So for 7 days, he debated with this Rupa Narayana. And this Rupa Narayana got so much defeated, that Rupa Narayana described had a call of nature, if you understand that. He couldn't control his bodily functions. So then, Jiva Goswami was so happy he had defended his guru. He did the right thing. But here's something that Rupa didn't appreciate. He went back to Rupa and he said, Rupa Goswami, and he said, I've defeated him, Haribo! And Rupa Goswami said, you took sannyas too early because you're proud. Sannyasi is not supposed to be proud. Sannyasi is supposed to be a manina manadena. That's the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he said, you don't belong in Vrindavan, so get out of here. So poor Jiva Goswami, he was sent to Mathura, and described, some of the biographers describe he was living in a tree or in the hollow of a tree for a while. I don't know how long, a year or so. And then Sanatana Goswami, the brother of Rupa Goswami, and Sanatana Goswami was like the Siksha Guru of Rupa Goswami. Lord Chaitanya was the Diksha Guru. So, anyway, so Sanatana Goswami said to Rupa Goswami, you're forgetting one of the important teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And Rupa Goswami said, what can I be forgetting? What are the important teachings? And we've talked about this before, the important teachings, Vaishnava Seva, Namaruchi, and then what's the last one? Oh, Jiva Doya! Jiva Doya. Jiva Doya means being compassionate to the Jiva souls, but it also means being compassionate to Jiva Goswami. So Rupa Goswami understood that. He called back Jiva Goswami, and Jiva Goswami was very happy to be back. And so, basically, lived happily ever after in Vrindavan. However, Jiva Goswami had disciples who were not qualified to understand what we call Parakiya Bhav. Parakiya Bhav means the unalloyed, let's say, romantic love between Radha and Krishna. So Jiva Goswami actually taught something called Swakiya Bhav. Swakiya Bhav means he taught about the marriage of Radha and Krishna, how they were actually married. And so some of the commentators, some people criticized Jiva Goswami, so he didn't understand Madhurya Ras, but he did, but his disciples were too immature to understand the aspects of Madhurya Ras. So actually he was pointing out Parakiya as high, but basically the Parakiya, or what we would call sometimes the illicit love between Radha and Krishna, not really illicit, but in the material world would be considered illicit. The illicit love between Radha and Krishna was something so high that people weren't qualified to know about it. Other things he did was that this emperor, Mughal emperor, and most of the Mughals, they used to kill the Hindus and destroy temples, but this one Mughal emperor, his name was Akbar, he was very favorable. He wanted all the religions to work together. So Jiva Goswami invited him to talk to him in a place called Nidhivan. Nidhivan means the sleeping forest of Radha and Krishna. It's right there in the middle of Vrindavan. I think some of you have been there, right? Nidhivan? Anyone's been there? No. It's a place, it's a forest in Vrindavan, inside the city of Vrindavan, where there's a little temple of Radha and Krishna sleeping. Anyone been there? Yeah, you've been there. So that's called Nidhivan. So he invited him to Nidhivan, and there he gave him a vision of Radha and Krishna and the spiritual world. And then Akbar decided to help the devotees construct the temples in Vrindavan, especially, the Radha Govinda temple, another Radha Damodar temple, and other temples were actually constructed by Akbar. Of course, later on, one of Akbar's descendants, Aurangzeb, tried to destroy some of the temples and attacked Vrindavan. So other stories about Jiva Goswami. There was a debate one time in Agra, it was sent by Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, as to whether the Yamuna or the Ganga were more glorious rivers. So the Yamuna won in that debate because Yamuna is the consort of Krishna. And he got a promise from Akbar never to hunt in Braj. He was the Shiksha Guru of Shaimananda, Narottama Das Thakur, and Srinivas Acharya, and established, I said before, the Radha Damodar temple, which Srila Prabhupada stayed in. That's his eternal home, according to his divine grace, Srila Prabhupada, for many, many years, and the devotees have maintained his rooms in the Radha Damodar temple. Jiva Goswami appeared in this world approximately in the year 1513 and left in the year 1598. And he also helped Raghunath Das Goswami excavate Radha Kund. In fact, Raghunath Das Goswami, because he was so renounced, didn't want to put anything in his name as a trustee or anything like that. So he put everything in the name of Jiva Goswami. And that Jiva Goswami signed the legal documents. So then his most important work is called the Bhagavat Sandarbha, also known as the Shat Sandarbha. There's 6 parts to it. The first part is called the Tattva Sandarbha. And the Tattva Sandarbha, it's something called epistemology, where he proved that Srimad Bhagavatam is the most authoritative evidence that directly points out the absolute truth. The second one is called the Bhagavat Sandarbha, which talks about the difference between impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, and Bhagavan, and it describes the spiritual world and the mode of goodness that is different, the pure mode of goodness, which is different from the material modes. It talks about deity worship, Krishna, so many different aspects. The third Sandarbha is called the Paramatma Sandarbha, and in this book there's the description, more description about the Paramatma, and an explanation of how the super soul exists in millions of living entities, and he discusses the incarnations and the expansions and the Leela avatar. The fourth Sandarbha is called the Krishna Sandarbha, and in this book Krishna is proved to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are discussions of Krishna's pastimes, his qualities, the avatars, Goloka Vrindavan, the identity of Goloka Vrindavan, the Yadus, the coward boys, Srimati Radharani, the manifest and unmanifest pastimes, Krishna's pastimes in Gokul, the queens of Dwarka as expansions of the internal modes, that is the gopis, and ultimately he talked about the gopis. The fifth Sandarbha is called the Bhakti Sandarbha. In this book there's a discussion of how devotional service can be executed, about the ecstasies of the soul, a discussion between the differences between the Mahabhagavad and the ordinary devotee, and the purpose of becoming a devotee of Krishna. And the last one, the sixth Sandarbha, is called the Priti Sandarbha. That's a book about love of Godhead, and there it's stated that only through love of Godhead can one become liberated and go back to home, back to Godhead. And of all types of liberation and loving service to the Lord is supreme, and one can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face in one of different rasas, which we mentioned the other day, like Shantaras, Dasharas, Sakyaras, Vatsalyaras, and Mathuryaras. And he also talked about Vipralamba, serving the Lord in separation, and the glories of Srimati Radharani. In addition, Jiva Goswami wrote other literatures like the Gopal Champu, which is a very large book which I'm doing a narration on. I'm about halfway through, about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, Krishna's pastimes in Dwarka and Mathura, giving more details, elaborating on the pastimes mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, does anyone have any questions? It's 7 o'clock. Perfect timing. So, looks like they're not ready. Anybody have any questions or comments or problems about Jiva Goswami or Lord Vamanadev? No? Yeah.
Bali Maharaj surrendered everything to Lord Vamanadev. So can we say what we read is not all about Krishna, so we have to use it in his sense?
Yeah, I mean, actually, Bali Maharaj is the Acharya of Atmanivedana. What is Atmanivedana? It's one of the 9 processes of devotional service. Each of the processes of devotional service have a specific Acharya. And so, Shravanam, Kirtanam, all right. Shravanam, hearing, is Maharaj Parikshit. Kirtanam is Yukadev Goswami. Padasevanam is Lakshmi. You got it? And Smarnam is Prahlad Maharaj. So you have all these different acharyas of each of the 9 processes. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur elaborates on this very nicely. Manasadeha Geha Yokishamor Arbilam to your Pare Nanda Kishore. Whatever I have, my mind, my body, my home, everything is yours, O Nanda Kishore. So that's Bali Maharaj showing us that. And therefore he's one of the Dwadasha, the 12 Mahajanas. You understand? like Bhishma and others, Lord Brahma, Bhishma, etc. The 12 great personalities who set the mood for the rest of us. Like if Krishna comes to take away everything, you just give him everything. Because if you don't give him everything, he's going to take it anyway. That's what Bali Maharaj shows us. Either you give it voluntarily or involuntarily. Ishavasham idam sarvam kincha jagadam jagat tena chiktena bunjara magridha kashasvitanam. Everything is owned and controlled by the Supreme Lord. Is meant to be used in his service. So, any other questions? Yes?
Gurudev, since Bali Maharaj is one of the Mahajans and as well as he is one of the Vaishnava devotee, and the demigods they are also devotees of Lord.
Right.
So, what kind of dispute, or why did they have a dispute between them?
Because his family, he wants to take care of his family. That's his family, the demons. You know, he's trying to make his family Krishna conscious. You know, imagine if your whole family were demons. Are they? Are they?
Maybe.
Do they eat meat?
Yes.
So don't you want your family to be Krishna conscious?
They don't listen.
Yeah, so they didn't listen to Bali either. So Prahlad Maharaj's whole family. Prahlad Maharaj was born in a demoniac family. Prabhupada said, virtually demoniac blood flowed in Prahlad Maharaj's body. You know, the genes, the genes, genetic stuff, that genetically he was a demon. But, because he had the association, and he was a pure devotee, obviously, because he had the association of Narada Muni, that's the lesson we can learn. Of course, some people tell this story which is not bona fide, so I have to really be clear. There's a non-bona fide story about Prahlad Maharaj, which is completely bogus. It's from an improper version of the Nrsimha Purana. So I just want to clarify that because some of you have heard it. Some of you heard the story that in a previous life, Prahlad Maharaj was arguing with his girlfriend, and he fasted because of that, and he didn't eat in Ekadasi, therefore he became a devotee of Lord Shiva. Not bona fide story. The bona fide story is that out of his pastimes, he was singing love songs to the demigods, Bollywood songs. This is a story from the Bhagavatam. And he was singing mundane love songs when the demigods were trying to do Harinam Kirtan. So that's a bona fide story. Or was that Narada Muni story? I think that was the Narada Muni story. Anyway, I may have confused the two stories. That may have been. Yeah, that was the Narada Muni story, not the Prahlad Maharaj. Sorry, that was the wrong story. Narada Muni was singing love songs to the demigods. But Prahlad Maharaj was always a pure devotee, and you don't become a pure devotee by accidentally fasting on Ekadasi. That's a story from the Nrsimha Purana, and it's not a bona fide story. You understand? Not bona fide. Because then you have this whole idea that if you can just put someone in a coma in a hospital, they'll become a great devotee. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. Then you get into this whole thing of a Gyata Sukriti. Gyata Sukriti works, but it doesn't give you pure devotional service. It actually frees you from bad karma, but it doesn't give you pure devotional service. So we have to be careful what stories we tell, where they come from. They have to come from bona fide sources from our sampradaya. Okay, time to greet the deities. All glories to His divine grace. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.